Time now for a Sioux Falls real estate update with Brent Baker. And we started this conversation last week, but we're going to pick up right where we left off. And if you want to hear the first half of the conversation, you can find that, and you'll be able to find today's conversation as well at SiouxFallsPodcast.com. And we kind of left our conversation last week talking about how home prices change over time. So even if you have the exact same floor plan, the exact same house, in the exact same neighborhood, but if my home sold 2 years ago, your home is going to sell this year, it might be a completely different price.
Very much so. The market is very price sensitive and seasonal in our part of the country.
Now, we look at other things like inspection access and appraisal assistance and having it where you're assisting with all of those things. That's something that the average person might not really think about. But when we're selling a home or we're buying a home, we don't have those connections. Luckily, we work with someone like you who does.
Well, and also who understands, who's been to a lot of inspections. I try to attend every inspection. And it's not that part of it is for support.
Yeah.
I am there to support my client. The other part is I might learn something.
Oh, yeah.
I might see something that I've never encountered before, and why wouldn't you go?
Exactly.
I guess is my opinion. Why wouldn't you
Get
go?
a free lesson each time.
Well, this is a big decision for people.
Yeah.
Buying a home involves a lot of dollar, and for most, it is their single biggest independent, separate decision. And you should have the courtesy to go. Yeah. And so I probably do 95% of them. Because then the other thing is I have firsthand knowledge of what the inspector saw and his explanation. And so walking them through and so I can work on their behalf.
Yeah.
And appraisal is a different animal from an inspection, but it is the one with the leverage.
Yeah.
And so sometimes an appraiser has overlooked something, not very often. It's usually something else behind the scenes, but there are cases where, things go a little sideways. Yeah. Maybe the appraisal came in a little low. Well, why? Yeah. What's the justification? So everybody needs to be represented, and if it's not something that you do as a living, most people want a professional.
Exactly.
You don't take the kid next door to work on your car for a reason. You don't go to your mother-in-law for legal advice.
Yeah. Unless she's a really good attorney, then maybe you could do that. But let's talk about the next thing on the list here is negotiation support, because that's the other thing that really matters a lot, especially, when we're talking about you have your representation, I have my representation. It's kind of hard for the person to be the same person and to do a lot of negotiation support, because which side are they on?
Well, that's exactly correct. I mean, if you're going to split your loyalties, I don't know how that works for most people. Because we are humans, we have a tendency to pick a favorite.
Yeah.
And, we do some divorce listings, estate listings. And particularly in divorce, there's a tendency to pull one way or the other. And we don't control what happens to the money. We have no control. My job as a realtor is to dispose of that home.
Yeah.
How the money gets split, any of that is not...
It's up to the attorneys.
Let them deal with that. But when it comes to negotiating, sometimes a buyer is asking for quite a bit.
Yeah.
That seems unreasonable. But on the other hand, it's a negotiation.
Yeah.
Maybe they're trying to get these items, but they've asked for this.
If I want 10 things, I ask for 20. And
correct.
Hope that I get 10.
And likewise, sometimes sellers don't understand that certain things are important and certain other things are not and are irrelevant.
Yeah, absolutely. Next, I see transaction coordination. What does that mean?
So if you remember when you went under contract on your home, there was a lot of things that happened behind the scenes. A lot of documents that had to get moved around. They related to inspections, walkthroughs, repairs, all of these things. Somebody needs to make sure that the deadlines are met, that the documents get to the appropriate people, and that's what a transaction coordinator does.
I remember getting emails from people on your team asking if we did this or if we did that, and don't forget this and don't forget that. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. It's not just Brent, not that that's a bad thing, but Brent and a team of people working together to make sure that we get everything done right.
Yeah, a transaction coordinator is not out and about. Mine is in her office. She has her checklist that she follows. She has things on her calendar that said on this date, we need this document. Need to follow up and make sure that these CD disclosures are received. And so we had one recently. The bank dropped the ball.
Yeah.
They did not. And she had been asking for it.
Yeah.
But they weren't responding. But she kept after them. And finally it came.
Yeah.
But because of this bank's failure to push send, the closing was delayed. But she was ahead of that game and on them.
Yeah.
And finally got them to realize that they had messed up.
Yeah.
Now, it's not very common that a bank messes up, but they're humans too.
Yeah.
And a transaction coordinator has a schedule, a checklist, and they know which each file needs. And that's all they do.
Keep things moving forward.
All they do. You know?
If somebody listening is going, hey, you know what? I am actually in the process right now of trying to figure out what my next step is. Maybe it's time to downsize. And the family home that they've had for all these years, now they have empty rooms and they don't need all of that space. Or maybe they're listening and they're going, boy, I've got another kid on the way and we can't stack them too high in the one room that we have. If it's time to buy a different home for whatever reason and time to sell the home they have, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
You can call me at 605-310-0297, or I can be reached by email at brentbaker@kw.com.
Very nice. And if you caught the tail end of this and you'd like to hear more of what we were just talking about, and you can also hear the first half of what we were just talking about as well, all of that can be found at SiouxFallsPodcast.com.